As for less complete musical adaptations, there was the stage musical adaptation. Okay, so there have been numerous Tolkien stage adaptations over the years, mostly of The Hobbit, because that's the children's story that more easily translates to the stage. And of course, there have been parody Lord of the Rings musicals, and I think there had been other serious attempts to turn Lord of the Rings into a stage musical before this, but early attempts are even less documented than this one. This one is the one people think of when they think of the Lord of the Rings musical. And there was certainly a lot of buzz as this one was being developed. Mostly buzz of the how are they gonna pull that off variety. They certainly made an attempt, with composers including the Finnish band Vartina and then future Oscar winner A.R. Rahman, and a commitment to impressive special effects on stage. The producers really wanted to do this right. So it debuted in Toronto in 2006, where it ran for just a little over half a year, and then it moved to London, where it ran for about twice that long, but still closed at a massive loss. And it probably would have gone down as the most notorious musical flop based on a long-beloved piece of pop culture with a prominent movie adaptation in the early 2000s, had a new challenger not emerged 5 years later. And yes, I'm just as mad as you are that Lord of the Rings didn't get a Letterman performance. But I can't really speak to the show itself, the staging, or the effects or anything because I didn't see it live. There are a couple of bootlegs floating around, but the visual quality is, how do I put this gently, unwatchable? So I'm not really going to talk about the show, I'm just going to focus on these songs as they are presented in the original cast recording. Now, several of the pieces on the cast recording are just in Elvish. I certainly respect that, but I imagine that was one of the many uphill battles this musical faced finding an audience. So the second track is called The Road Goes On.
There's a road calling you to stray.
I thought it said it's called The Road Goes On, but this sounds like something else.
Under moon and star, take the road no matter how far.
I mean, it sounds like a musical number from a musical, but it's not The Road Goes On, is it?
Don't look back, follow where it goes. Far beyond the sun. Take the road wherever it runs. The road goes on, ever, ever on.
Oh, I guess it is The Road Goes On, in title alone.
Feel by feel, style by style.
Styles upon styles.
The road goes on, ever, ever on. The road goes on, ever, ever on.
It's not bad, but it's not The Road Goes Ever On. I guess my core problem with this is the same as my core problem with Seussical. You're adapting an author with an immediately recognizable lyricism, an author who has written so much that would translate to music quite easily, and then you're writing lyrics that don't sound like that author, leading me to wonder if the only reason you bothered adapting this author in the first place was the brand recognition.
There's an inn of old renown, where they brew a beer so brown. Moon came rolling down the hill one heaven's day night to drink his fill.
There are a couple of songs here that take the place of songs from the book and evoke those songs a tiny bit in the lyrics, but they're just not those songs.
Called by the fiddle to the middle of the muddle, with the cow in the capers and the smalls all squealing. Moon in a fuddle, went to huddle by the griddle, but he slipped in a muddle and the world went reeling.
The Tolkien Ensemble already proved that all these songs can work to music, and I don't understand why you wouldn't at least make the songs sound a little more like the songs in the book. Do you just not want to pay the Tolkien estate songwriting royalties on top of the other royalties?
In the middle by the griddle and the moon slept till staring day.
There are also some tracks that are just score, presumably while action is happening. And that's fine, but it's not what I listen to a musical cast recording for. Now, I do like how the tracks that are just scored don't sound like retreads of Howard Shore's score for the movies, but that may have been another uphill battle for audiences who only just got into Lord of the Rings 5 years earlier. There is one song I like a lot in this album, and that is Now and For Always.
Sing me a story of heroes of the Shire, muddling through, brave and true.
Like the others, this isn't a direct lyrical adaptation of Tolkien, but it is based on the conversation in the book about the great stories and will their story be told, and I think it gets the emotion of the exchange across rather well.
Now and for always, Harfoot suit planted, and storefolk who plowed, bred to endure, slow but sure.
This is the only song that feels like it really fulfills the potential of a Lord of the Rings musical. Take the core emotion of the most important relationship in the book, translate it to song, and do it well.
To stay the same, now and for always.
Condensing the entirety of Lord of the Rings down to a 3-hour play was probably a fool's errand from the get-go, but this makes it feel like they could have made this work if they just focused on Frodo and Sam's relationship for the entire show. You know, like the Finnish play that was televised did.
To share stories we tell will cast their spell now and for always.
And then Now and For Always has an almost immediate ironic villain reprise with Gollum and Smeagol.
Smeagol promised to help Master. Sit by the fire, lights glow. Tell us an old tale we know. Take the precious.
This feels like half the reason the musical was pitched. Take the Smeagol-Gollum conflict and turn it into a one-man duet. They must have been so sure this would become a huge audition piece going forward.
A Baggins stole it from us. We hate Bagginses. No, not this one.
The problem is it's not musical enough. Gollum sings a little bit, but he also kind of Rex Harrison's his way through parts of his argument with himself.
They'll hurt us. There's 2 of them. Don't have to wake. Won't let them wake. Be Lord Smeagol. Be the best. He speaks nice to me. No one else does. Take the precious. Pass the test.
I'd prefer a new edition of a Mordor Inquisition than to ever let a Baggins in my life.
Just leave it behind. Kill them. Not going to take it. Not letting them do it. No one.
And then other parts just aren't lyrics. Gollum's just yelling dialogue at himself while music plays in the background.
I don't want to. Please. Eat it, want it, get it, take it, hurt it, kill it. No, we promised. Not us.
So much of this musical falls just short of its potential. But then it feels like they run out of songs long before they run out of story, and the last handful of tracks are all score, so it really feels like they did not go all the way with turning Lord of the Rings into an actual musical. And again, it was probably a fool's errand from the get-go, but it feels like it should have more songs at least. It also just seems like they didn't use their song time wisely. Like, a lot of the early songs feel superfluous, the later bits don't have songs at all, and they're condensing the story. Couldn't they have found creative ways to musically narrate parts that they had to brush through otherwise? You know, like the BBC radio production did with the Battle of Pelennor Fields? I don't know, maybe the whole thing actually did work better on stage. It just unfortunately did not work well enough to find enough of an audience to make its money back. But the story of this musical is not necessarily over yet. Just this year, it was reworked and revived again. And by reworked, I mean scaled way down, and revived as The Lord of the Rings, A Musical Tale, running as a limited engagement. It was limited on purpose this time, it wasn't cut short.
Sing me a story of heroes of the Shire.
In the east, the Dark Lord is rising once more. He hunts far and wide for his lost ring.
So small a thing. So plain and yet so powerful.
I again didn't see this show because it was in Berkshire, which is not exactly an easy trip from Anaheim, but I actually heard decent things about the production, that scaling it down to a more intimate version and steering into more limited resources actually made the show work better. So, who knows, maybe this scaled down production will tour someday, or maybe the whole show will be reworked again in the future, or given the pro shot treatment at some point, and if that happens, maybe I'll talk about it someday. But for now, I respect the ambition of the past productions, and I like Now and For Always, but I'm not exactly adding the rest of this to my Ultimate Tolkien Music playlist.